The bids are in. The gavel is dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast. They get all things wine value, wine retail, wine auctions, and just wine. With me, as always, is the illustrious Wizard of Wine, Paul Walker, our wine expert. My name, of course, Jeff Gurd. I'm on WineBid's marketing team. And today we're going to be going through an auction recap. Let us start off with probably one of the craziest things that sold last week with 12 bids. I don't know that we've seen 12 bids on a single item in a minute. 09 Armand Rousseau Gevrey Chambertin Le Cazaret.
That's way off. There's a T in there, Cazetiere. But
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm getting better.
The rest of it wasn't too bad. You didn't mangle it like you did,
like I normally do. Cazetiere. Started at 180
soon enough.
It started at 185.
Yeah, it was way
bids. Took it
way underpriced. I think
$60.
that was like a user error. I think I might have even been responsible for that, believe it or not. And fortunately, knew the client well, and we knew that things were going to get picked up pretty crazy, especially for such a great vintage and such a hot, Burgundian producer. You already mentioned it was Burgundy. Anyway, yeah, no, that's bonkers. Because also recent external hammers suggested something in like the 500-600 range. So that was impressive to see an 860 hammer.
Well, I was going to say that if you had bought...
Oh, here we go. It's Jeff's wine investment.
At $185 a bottle.
Jeff's wine investment, it was quite inexpensive back then, actually. So, it wasn't too long ago. I mean, but I don't know. When that was released, actually, it's probably about 11 years ago or almost 12 years ago. So that's not too bad if you get that wine back then for probably less than $200, actually.
Let's
and Hubert Lamy we mentioned last week too. A lot of those wines you mentioned last week got bid up quite a bit.
Yeah, let's take a look at some other stuff. We had that Hubert Lamy Saint-Aubin Le Frionnet 8 bids from 55 to 81. We had the 1997 Laurent Perrier Brut 8 bids from 60 to 130.
That's kind of surprising to me because it's an interesting wine, not particularly rare, but I think the vintage Brut wines are more collectible because they're just not around. Like you just can't buy that wine anywhere, I think, at retail and in most secondary markets. I think it's another thing that's pretty tricky to find. That's one of the things that separates us from most other auction houses, that we have examples like this, right? Where you'll see sort of a wine that was probably pretty readily available at retail back when it was released, whenever that was. I don't know, in the early
2002
or something.
Yeah.
And so it's long gone from any kind of retail establishments, I would imagine, unless they had some kind of old cellar situation. But anyway, that seemed like a lot, to go from 130 for something that was probably close to like $40 on release, I would imagine.
What do you make of this mag of Comte Lafon Volnay Saint-Genot du Milieu?
Yeah, that was, I thought that was a steal at the reserve. And so not surprised there. That the $300, whatever, $295 hammer, that seems in line for something from 2000. I mean, that's I think a kind of underrated Redberg vintage. There's some really, really great wines. And so I'll bet that bottle is fantastic now. And frankly, $295, it's not crazy. It's not crazy.
Well, it's a mag.
Yeah, and it's
a mag, $150.
The Fond Volnay, they're very, very good, and you'd pay a heck of a lot more for mag of the Chardonnay than any of the Merceaux, that's for sure. So
for sure.
Yeah.
What about this O2 JM Gobelard at Phil? Brut Gobière, Edgefield, Mille Sommet, Cuvée Prestige. For Cuvée Prestige, 7 bids took from 30 to 37.
Still a deal. I mean, that's still a
Still
deal.
a deal.
Great.
Oh, well, I thought about bidding on this one because like '02 is just such an amazing year in champagne, right? And even somebody's not a top tier producer, right? These grower bottles, you can find some phenomenal stuff at great price. I mean, go into any store in the US, any supermarket or any store that's, liquor store, try and find a bottle of champagne for under $40.
Yeah,
it's just not different. It's non-vintage, no less, right? Let alone a vintage age classified grower champagne for $37. It's just not possible. So like you, I'm not terribly surprised this one went for more. O2 Mondavi Tokalan Reserve Fumé Blanc.
Yeah.
It started
pretty crazy.
30. Sold for $80 a bottle, between $80 and $81.
That was nuts. I mean, I think I pointed this out in the email that we sent out for the picks I had, because I don't think, did I mention it? Yeah, I think I mentioned it last week in the new wine selections, and because it's not the one that everyone goes nuts for. The I block is the Sauvignon Blanc from Tokalan that everybody goes crazy for, but I think this went for more than the I block wine, even from the same vintage recently. So yeah, that was surprising. That was really surprising to me.
I thought that one quite hysterical. We had this 97 Masson Loire Bourgogne Rouge, which started at 95, hammered at 320.
Yeah,
that is quite a journey after 6 bids to get up to 320 for,
that's a lot. I mean, those Negociant, wines from the Loire even now are super collectible. They were not expensive for, the longest time. I think even if you look at the history, this wine was never more than $100 every previous time it was an auction. I think it was just under 100 a couple of years ago. And then it was as low as $20 back in, way back in 04. And, so it's just a huge increase in the last couple of years. And obviously, I mean, from 17 to 21, it looks like in 2017 hammer for 51, and then in 2021 a hammer for almost $100 for 96. So it's a big jump.
Yeah, and we had 2 of them.
A couple of them. Yeah.
2 lots in auction,
and they were, these wines were not that great. I think it's just the name there. It's really carrying it.
We had this 99 Vincent Jardin Von Romani Le Succo.
Yeah, well, this is another one I mentioned. Another 99. It's like a kind of a standout deal, and obviously doubling in price made it no longer such a deal. But that's what happens. I
mean, it started 80, went to 170. Probably not surprising to you. I don't know that I was super surprised that went up so much. We had, let's see.
Well, it's just impossible to find, something, especially something from such a phenomenal vintage from that vineyard, sort of almost regardless of producer. And Vincent Jardin's a large Negociant. I think the business has been sold, I believe, or taken over by another conglomerate or family or company or something. But anyway, the wines, don't get the respect I think that some other, smaller producers get. However, you're just not going to find Suchot, Von Romani Suchot especially from 99 for anywhere near $170, I would imagine. So it's still, I think, unfortunately, reasonable compared to what what's going on there nearby.
We had, speaking of 99s, we had Jean Boileau and Phil Volney Le Chevrolet. This one started at 55, 5 bids, took it at 91.
Yeah, that was another one of my sort of picks from Burgundy, and that seems kind of, again, not too surprising. It's a really, really hard to find example, especially now, because we're not talking about, the top tier sort of commodity producers that you see, from Burgundy. It's a smaller but high quality wine, and so it's going to get some action. So yeah, that's under $100 for Volney Chevrolet. That's where it's going.
Let's talk about some of the big hammers this week, some of the heavy hitters. We had not surprisingly at the top, we had two 3-bottle lots OWC of Screaming Eagle, a 2016 and 2020. The 2016 went for $83.55. 2020 went for $74.55. Probably not surprising. 2016, amazing year. 2020, rough year for some, but interesting to see those two hammers. 05 Rousseau Chambertin for $4,200. We had a 2000 Petrus OCC. That's original cardboard case. Although you knew that because you're an expert in wine. That one went for.
Well, if you look at it, you'll know that it's from the Duclos collection, and then the way they packed those was in actually a big fancy wood box, the whole thing. But then they're individually boxed in cardboard. So now you know.
Duclos collection. The more you know.
Duclos.
We had 6-bottle lot OWC of Sinacanon in the crosshairs and in the dark.
That's an older one. Those older ones don't pop up too often. That's got some time on it. So those reds must be pretty ready to drink at this point. But
38.40. 04 DRC Grand Echezot went for $35.15. And then we had an 09 Lamasan Aubryon 6-bottle lot go for $33.90. And then I'll mention we had 2 mags of 03 Latour go for $3,000 a piece. Anything else you want to mention before we sign off here?
Yeah, there were a couple hammers and in Bond again. These kind of mid 2000s and early 2000s vintages of Bond keep going up and up. 4 Pluribus hammered at $435. 05 St. Eden hammered at $445. So those are creeping up. And there was a 2006 5-bottle horizontal of Bond that hammered at $1645. So that was quite impressive. We just talked about the 99 Souchot from Vincent Gernet, and there was a 2014 Arnoux Lachaux von Romé Souchot that hammered at $500. And so again, we see a lot of these Arnoux Lachaux wines coming through these days, but that was quite a bit of, that was pretty impressive. And there, in addition, speaking of Lachaux, Charles Lachaux, the winemaker, has his own label, and one of the Croix Blanche Bourgognes sold for $645 for the 2020, which was quite a number. So yeah, those are some of the. Oh yeah, and again, there was a little bit more Lamy Cayat in last week. I think there's a little bit more in this week too. But there was 17 Chassagne Cailleret hammered at $710. So still super, super hot, those wines.
All right. And with that, this has been another episode of Finally Hammered. Wishing you happy bidding and cheers.
Cheers.